Another month down. Did May have some good movies? Yes. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Bear with me. The voices is still slowly coming back, but we're going to talk about the best and worst movies of May in tier list form, like we always do. Some movies I'm excited to talk about, so I need you guys down below. Let me know, what was your favorite movie you watched last month? New releases, both streaming and in theaters. Feels good to say. And in theaters. It's nice. And of course, if you guys enjoy this series, let me know down below. Be sure to drop your thumbs up, and let's get into it. We're going to start with Jason Statham. It's slowly getting worse every time I do it. Wrath of Man is a brand new Guy Ritchie, Jason Statham film that, in my opinion, belongs on the good tier. Off to a good start here. I thought this one was maybe not as action-packed as I anticipated, especially when you pair these two together. The director and Guy Ritchie, we always have this upbeat, somewhat comedic tone, and then Jason Statham, you just want the guy to go in and wreak some havoc. And we get a little bit of all of that, right? There are some comedic bits in here, and Jason Statham gets his chance to show us what he's made of, but it's much more serious than what we're used to from both of these individuals. And Statham actually has a character that has a bit of range here, and he shows us, in my opinion, that he's a very capable actor. The movie itself is shot very artistically. It's one of those films that was made during the pandemic. Not a lot of people knew about it, knew that it was coming out, and this is kind of Ritchie going back to his roots, but also bringing us something a bit darker than we're used to seeing, and I like that. I liked this movie quite a bit. There are some things about it that keep it being on that great tier, but overall, the story itself is good enough to say, I had a good time with it. I would recommend it. Let's get into the next film here, and that is Those Who Wish Me Dead. A bit of a disappointment, but it's still one I'm going to throw on this okay tier. I say disappointment because you see Taylor Sheridan, and one of my favorite writers in the business, from Hell or High Water to Sicario, and then he brought us his directorial, I believe it was his debut, with Wind River, and Wind River was great, in my opinion. And ever since then, he's been bringing us these projects, but this year, a couple that I've been like, okay, and Those Who Wish Me Dead is another one that I'm just like, okay. This one he's directing as well as writing, and the cast is incredible. From John Bernthal to Nicholas Hoult to, of course, Angelina Jolie, who does a good job, and everyone does a good job, and the villainous characters, these assassins, their storyline, in my opinion, was just as interesting as this young boy's and Jolie's. That relationship, it's solid, but it's not maybe fleshed out as much as I needed it to be. And then the end just kind of wraps everything up extremely quickly. And this story felt like it needed to be part of a longer movie that gave us a chance to dive deeper into these characters. And at a point, it's John Bernthal's movie as much as Jolie's movie, and I'm okay with that, but there wasn't as good of a balance as I expected. So in terms of Taylor Sheridan projects, yeah, it was a bit disappointing, but I still had a reasonable enough time with it. It's still shot really well. It's still very intense, and the story does provide a lot for all the characters to do. Because of that, I'm putting it on the okay tier, but come on, Taylor Sheridan. We need a little bit better. Next up is a movie that probably not as many people have seen. It's called Super Me. It's on Netflix, and it's going on the meh tier. And our main character is exhausted from trying to stay awake because every time he closes his eyes, he's being chased by this demon who kills him in his dreams. But then he discovers that he can actually take objects from his dreams, carry them over into the real world. Austin, what are you talking about? This sounds incredible. How is it not above this? Well, for me, it was kind of the execution, and that premise is really cool. It's like this Inception-style movie, and the transitions and the effects kind of look like in Jumper when he's transporting from one place to the other. Yeah, sounds great. For me, it came across as a little bit cheesy at times. The character depth just was not there, and it became more uninteresting as it went because there's a crime boss involved and the movie gets a little convoluted. It's not to say it's bad because there are some great ideas here. And again, the concept is easily one of the coolest concepts of the year. But the movie as a whole, it just couldn't quite live up to that hype, even though for a Netflix original, maybe there's something there that you guys could throw on and just see how you feel about this story. So Super Me, it's just kind of middle of the pack. Now, Monster is a film that I really wanted to love because of Kelvin Harrison Jr. While I didn't quite love it, and there is an argument to be made that it could be on the okay tier, I'm actually going to go one tier higher, put it on the good tier, and a lot of that has to do with this cast, with these performances. It's the story about a man by the name of Steve Harmon, who's a 17-year-old honor student, and then the world comes crashing down when he's charged with felony murder. Jeffrey Wright, Jennifer Hudson, ASAP Rocky, Tim Blake Nelson, Kelvin Harrison Jr. The ensemble is spectacular, and you're seeing the movie through his perspective, through the eyes of a want-to-be filmmaker, through an artist, and the heartbreak and the pain and what he has to go through. And all of those things combine to create for a very emotionally moving experience. Now, my only thing keeping this a bit lower is the fact that it's a very familiar story, and the writing itself, it's not different from a lot of other projects that we've seen. What makes this movie stand out just a little bit is the cast, is Kelvin Harrison freaking Jr., who is just one of the best, I can't say up and coming because he's already there, actors in the business. So, good movie on Netflix in my opinion. Here it is, Army of the Dead. Austin, you like this movie more than other people, I see. Yeah, I did. You know, part of it could be where I saw it in a theater. Part of it could be I was watching Zack Snyder's movies to prepare for that tier list. I was on a Zack Snyder high. But you know what? I don't care. I'm putting Army of the Dead on the great tier, and I'm keeping it there, and I'm more confident now than ever. This movie is fun. Dave Bautista is a freaking blast in this film, and the surrounding cast, the supporting cast, while, you know, maybe some of the performances aren't the best, there is something for everyone. There's the comedic character, there's the action-heavy character, there are a couple that you don't know are expendable until we go into Las Vegas and find out that they are expendable. There's the jerk, there's the zombie bait, there's pretty much everyone you could possibly ask for. Are they fleshed out to a degree that, you know, could be Oscar-worthy? No, that's not the kind of movie that it is. It's a Zack Snyder pure action movie. What I like about this film is that they took these zombies and actually gave them personalities and gave us some lore there that made this more interesting than most other zombie movies I've seen. Is it as good as Dawn of the Dead? Does it have the complexity that that film had? Not necessarily, but I like the world building. I like the opportunity for other movies. I had a really good time with this. I really did. And Army of the Dead is one of those films that I may be on the other side on. You know, you look at the Letterboxd score, 2.8. Fine. I really do believe it is a great Zack Snyder movie. Now, is it like, oh, one of the best movies I've seen all year? No, it's not. But it's just really fun. I had fun with it. There it is. How about one of the craziest experiences I've had all year? Fried Barry. Oh my goodness, this drug-addicted, abusive, and this is in the summary, bastard who is abducted by aliens. So then he takes a backseat as an alien as this thing controls his body, and he's basically roaming through the town as this alien throughout the entire runtime of the movie, not knowing really anything of what he's doing and creating and causing chaos throughout town. It's this wild, colorful, visceral experience that feels like a B movie at times. It's this cult-ish horror film that not a lot of people are going to love. Maybe not a lot of people are going to hate. Everybody's just going to be like, what did I just watch? What was that? And that's how I was. I had to sit and think about and ponder upon this. And I actually ended up, being high enough on it to where I could put it on the okay tier. There is a lot about this film, especially visually, that works extremely well. But just know, Fried Barry is unlike anything you've seen this year. It is a horror movie that not everyone's going to agree on, but it's a horror movie for the ages. Next up, The Woman in the Window. And I'm actually more kind to this film than a lot of people because the entire build-up, the first two acts, and I know a lot of people said, well, Austin, it's a slower film, it doesn't entirely work. I was on board until that third act, and that kind of causes me to put this one on the meh tier, and part of me considered putting it on the bad tier because this film it falls flat at the end of the day. Amy Adams gives an awesome performances. Gary Oldman, Wyatt Russell, Brian Tyree Henry, and of course Amy Adams, who is outstanding in this film. Everyone is really, really good. The director, I like the director quite a bit. something about this story just really started to become overly complicated, overly convoluted, and then it just goes off the rails at the end. I've heard some say the opposite. I've heard some say the beginning was boring and then the end was at least appealing. And I could get behind that to a degree. Some interesting filmmaking techniques, some that come across as a little bit awkward, but this movie is just really, it turns into this somewhat dull. Right before that third act, it's like, okay, you guys have got me into it enough. Let's resolve this problem. Then they try to resolve it, and it's just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, that's all I have to say about The Woman in the Window. Really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, it just fell flat for me. One that didn't fall flat, one that could have fell flat because it's all about one person spending time in this very enclosed area is Oxygen on Netflix. Think of Ryan Reynolds' Buried a few years ago. I'm going to throw this on the good tier. I'm very confident in that. I think this is a very good movie. Melanie Laurent wakes up in a cryogenic chamber with no recollection of how she got there, and she has to find a way out of there. But the thing about this film is there is this timer, this oxygen meter that is slowly running down to zero, and once it gets to zero, well, you can't breathe anymore. So you've got to calm down, you've got to figure a way out of here. But we're also kind of flashing back where she's trying to remember how she got here in the first place, and the movie is very interesting in that way, and I found this to be a very appealing film. Now, I understand, a lot of people are going to watch this and be like, it's boring, because it's just one person in one space, and we've seen that time and time before. Tom Hardy and Ryan Reynolds have had films like that. It's all about the execution. If you have a compelling story, then something like this could work. And while it wasn't great, there were definitely some parts that became a bit dull. Overall, I thought Oxygen was a very good attempt at what it was going for, and I would say it's worth a watch. One that, I'm not going to sit here and recommend. I didn't like this movie, but I would say it is at least worth trying, is Mainstream. And unfortunately, one of my more anticipated, I'm going to throw Mainstream on the bad tier. This is a film that Andrew Garfield is great in. I think the entire cast rocked it. You have three people. They're trying to preserve their identities as they form this crazy, fast-moving internet production company. The summary describes it as a love triangle. I thought they did a very poor job at trying to establish that. But Mainstream has a lot of good and a lot of really compelling actors in here. I love Maya Hawke. I really like Nat Wolff. I'm always rooting for him. And Andrew Garfield is great. This film started out really promising and really interesting, and then, I say off the rails. I said that with Woman in the Window, but this is entirely different. This is really off the rails, and I mean almost immediately. And there's some very uncomfortable scenes because Garfield's character is slowly going crazy throughout the film, and then you realize that things are not what they seem, and things happen in this movie that just don't feel real at all. It's like, how did they go from there to there that quickly? Why is everything working out in their favor? And it escalates to a degree that almost feels like a parody, and I guess it is partially going for that at times with Garfield's character, but they just didn't really execute it in the proper way, and Mainstream fell very flat for me, even though, again, if you're interested in it, it may be worth a watch because this movie is wild, and I am glad I watched it. I just don't think it's very good. Blue Miracle. It is your conventional and cliche, heartfelt, one you walk away from wanting to cheer movie. It's on Netflix, and there's a lot of issues here, but I still think it's an okay experience. I'm going to put it on the okay tier. To save their orphanage, a guardian and his kids have to partner up with a washed-up boat captain for a chance to win a lucrative fishing competition. This cast, Jimmy Gonzalez as Omar, is actually really good. He's kind of the heart of the story, trying to protect this orphanage because they're slowly running out of money. Dennis Quaid, he's playing this very different character, this grizzled, argumentative old man who just doesn't want to be there. He doesn't like the kids, but he's very good at fishing. And 27 minutes, I think it was 27 minutes because I just watched this, into the film is when they go out on the boat and they start fishing, and I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? And, there's some times where I'm like, that line's really cheesy, or that conversation's kind of meaningless. It's a very artistic movie, surprisingly. Lots of blues here, lots of interesting camera angles, and the film does tend to lose itself in the story. But at the end of the day, it's heartfelt, it's heartwarming. We don't get a lot of movies like this now, and this one was kind of refreshing, even though it's very familiar in that way. Overall, I would say Blue Miracle is worth a watch on Netflix if you like this kind of movie. Next up is Profile. I think Profile is a good movie. Just like Unfriended and Searching, this takes place almost entirely in front of a computer screen. An undercover journalist infiltrates the online propaganda channels of the so-called Islamic State, only to be sucked in by her recruiter. The cast is absolutely excellent here. Valeen Kane, Shazad Latif, Christine Adams, Morgan Watkins. The direction is crisp and just really, really incredible. This movie was supposed to release in 2018. For some reason, it kept getting pushed, and it's one of those that it's very intense. You're on the edge of your seat because of what this woman is going through. She's attempting to infiltrate, but at the same time, she's kind of getting sucked into this world, and it's political in nature, but not in a way that feels overwhelming. It's one of those that grips you in a way that you never imagined. Profile is so interesting, so fascinating, and I won't say I had a good time with it because I was really scared for our main character the entire time, but I had an intense time and a fascinating time watching this. Profile is a good movie. It was like one step away from being a great film, but at the end of the day, I think I feel good about it on that good tier. Next up is Spiral. Now, Spiral is one of those films, the Saw sequel, that a lot of people are looking forward to. I thought it would maybe change the game just a bit more than it did. I thought Spiral would do what Jigsaw could not do and take it in an entirely fresh direction. Of course, keeping those things that we love about the Saw franchise. And in a way, does take it in a fresh direction. It does slowly bring in music cues, and even the color correction changes just a bit towards the end of the film. So it really kind of does everything I wanted to do, just not on the level that I wanted. There were character issues. There were moments where I said they could have explored that just a bit more. A lot of people didn't like Chris Rock in the role. I actually like Chris Rock in the role. I like the fact that he's doing something different here. And I thought Spiral was, and I'll put it on its tier here in just a second. Let's just say, if you're a fan of the other Saw films, it's a must-watch. You have to watch it. But if you're not one that is really into the Saw movies, I would also say it's fresh maybe enough, not on a Jigsaw level, that it may pull you in that way. It's more of this crime investigation type movie, and there is a little bit of a twist in there. I saw it coming, so predictable. That was a problem, but overall, I'm going to say this one was high okay tier, almost on that good tier. Can't quite get it there just yet. All right, Plan B. I watched this late last night to prepare for this tier list. It just dropped on Hulu, a Hulu original film. I'm going to put it on the good tier because this is one of those coming-of-age stories that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. So after a regrettable first sexual encounter, a straight-laced high school student and her slacker best friend have 24 hours to hunt down a Plan B pill in America's heartland. Oh my goodness, this movie was really, really unexpectedly funny at times. And our two main characters here are excellent, just excellent. Their chemistry, their bond, the idea that they're hiding these things from each other, but at the same time, you understand why, because their relationship is so strong, and they try to encourage each other. And their adventure is so unexpected because things will happen throughout. At one point, with the guy and the ring, I won't say what or how if you haven't seen the movie, but you know what I'm talking about. Really uncomfortable things. But it's a movie that I think a lot of people, especially that target demographic, are going to enjoy. Is it familiar? Yes. Are there cliches? Just the way the movie starts out with that song? Yeah, we've seen it 1,000 times before, but with something like this, if the execution is good, I don't care. Plan B was entertaining, and that's all I could ask for. A movie that wasn't, I wouldn't use the word entertaining, but I would use the word interesting and extremely well acted. The Dry, I really wanted The Dry to be on the great tier. Unfortunately, it's on the good tier. It came very close. My only knock on The Dry is the fact that the pacing, ironically enough, is just a little bit dry. But overall, Eric Bana's performance in this film, oh my goodness, where has he been? He is excellent in this movie. He plays Aaron, who returns to his drought-stricken hometown, hence The Dry, to attend a tragic funeral. But his return opens up a decades-old wound, the unsolved death of a teenage girl that maybe he was there when that happened. There's an aspect of that story that is shocking and really emotional in itself, but at the same time, he's trying to or helping to solve this new case where you're really not sure how they're going to do it or who is involved. There are a couple things there that happen towards the end of the film, and both of these storylines intersect in a way. And the way that the movie ends, I'm going to use the word haunting. The movie is so haunting when it comes to a close. Absolutely spectacular. Yeah, I was really on board with the dry. I was. Now, again, there are some things about it that didn't quite work all the way, some loose story ends that they didn't quite tie up, and overall, I did want more from some of these supporting characters, but just looking at his character and Aaron, excellently written. I would be okay if he gets some smaller awards buzz, and the cinematography, gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. The score, repetitive, but in a way that I kind of liked. It kind of felt like it was sucking you in all throughout the movie. Yeah, The Dry is definitely worth a watch. I was very surprised. As well as Cruella. I know people are giving this movie a lot of flack, but I'm going to put Cruella on the good tier, and I feel really good about that. And I know a lot of people that are even higher than me on Cruella. My only thing about this film is that there are some things about it that I wish would have been tweaked in a way that made it feel even more different than it already felt. The style is awesome. I love this director bringing over some things that he brought from I, Tonya. And then, of course, you have the Emmas. Emma Thompson, Emma Stone, one of my favorite, Paul Walter Hauser, who was absolutely hilarious in this film. So Cruella is one of those movies that you watch. It's a Disney live-action movie, and you're like, what's Craig Gillespie going to do with it? And then you're like, wow, this is really different. This is really different, and I love how different it is. Now, again, I do wish they wouldn't have wrapped it up in the way that they wrapped it up in. It just feels very quick and not as impactful as it needed to, and the movie does feel long, in my opinion. I felt that length because it kind of just kept going, and I was on board with it, and really on board with it at a point, and I'm just like, all right, we need to keep this moving just a little bit, but overall, I liked Cruella. I will fully admit that, and after sitting and thinking about it, feel confident that some of these other Disney live-action movies, I thought about it, and then I went back and rewatched them. I'm like, okay, maybe they're not as, they're just kind of eh. Cruella is one of those. I'm definitely going to keep it on the good tier, probably forever. And my wife liked it even more than I did. Not that that matters, but hello, honey. She's not watching. All right, A Quiet Place, Part 2. Where's it going to go? Are we going to do it? We're going to do it. We're absolutely going to do it. We're going to throw that on the awesome tier, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. Listen, I don't have to say very much about A Quiet Place Part 2. Absolutely loved this sequel. Is it as good as the original? That's still up in the air in my head. Part of the original, there's that magic it's hard to separate that, but I need to see this film again. I've seen the first Quiet Place like 6 times. I need to see it on a big screen in IMAX one more time, and I am so just fascinated with how John Krasinski brought this together, being a prequel and a sequel and expanding this world, giving us more characters, new characters. Cillian Murphy is a wonderful addition to this family. Millicent Simmons, I mean, she's really the star of the show this time around. She has a lot to do, and that is warranted, and she deserves to carry a movie like this on her shoulders because she is that good of a performer, in my opinion. Of course, Emily Blunt. Of course, Noah Jupe. And we do get a little bit of John Krasinski. Jaimon Hansu is in here, and the direction from Krasinski is even better this time around. He has added on to what we already loved about his direction in the first movie. Guys, wow. I mean, just blown away by A Quiet Place Part 2. An outstanding film. An outstanding sequel, in my opinion. Thriller, horror, action, adventure, everything you want. And of course, you've got to rank these films. I think mainstream looks good at the bottom. Sorry, Andrew Garfield. But following that, I'm going to keep The Woman in the Window and Super Me just above because I had a bit more fun with Super Me on the okay tier. At the bottom is actually going to be Fried Berry, followed by, Those Who Wish Me Dead below Blue Miracle. That's kind of shocking. I would say Blue Miracle is more cliche, but my disappointment was a lot higher in that film. And then at the top, very close to that good tier, like I said, is Spiral. Now, here is the fun one. This good tier, in my opinion, is absolutely stacked. But we're going to start at the bottom with Profile. Profile is at the bottom of that list, followed by Wrath of Man, which I still thoroughly enjoyed. I just think these other movies are just a bit more special. Oxygen will be my next film, and right in front of Oxygen, I think I'm going to put Plan B in that spot, followed by Cruella. And you know what? I just realized Monster was still there. I actually have Monster below all of these, so what are you doing, Austin? Come on, man. Get it right the first time. Yeah, Monster is below all of those. Again, not bad, but I think I prefer the other ones. And then, of course, at the top of that good tier, I have The Dry, because, again, The Dry is as close to being on that great tier as possible. But beyond that, yeah, guys, Army of the Dead. I had such a great time with it, so I have to put it at that spot. And at number 1 on the awesome tier, I have A Quiet Place Part 2. And I'm feeling really good about that. I just thought the movie was wonderful. And okay, that was a long tier list. I apologize for talking so much, but so many really good to great movies to talk about this month. And thanks for coming back and doing this with me. And I appreciate all of your support with these videos. Come back, because next month, hopefully, we'll have another batch. Hopefully, fingers crossed, of really good movies. And obviously, we have some great things later this week. That franchise video, my favorite franchises of all time, that's coming out very soon, along with numerous reviews. You're the best. I'll see ya at some point in the future.